Hi guys, this is gsno.com and I'm here with a foldable phone. This one is the Huawei Mate Xs2 and it can be held like this, like a regular phone, or it can be opened once you place the latch here to achieve a diagonal not very far from a tablet, an iPad mini. Now the diagonal has descended from 8 inches of the predecessor to 7.8 inches this time, but still the format is pretty friendly for people who want to use a larger device and at the same time a smaller one once you get the fold thing going. This one can be considered easily a rival for the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 3, however there are some compromises. It's a 4G device because it lacks a 5G chip, it uses a Snapdragon 888 launched in December 2020, and at the same time it has a different format from the Galaxy Z Fold. It leaves the screen on the outside prone to scratches, it doesn't have an inner and outer screen. It's time for the review of the Huawei Mate Xs2, priced at around 2,000 euros. Okay, so first things first, the design. That's what the device looks like when it's closed up. Compared to its predecessors, it feels more like a phone, like the other models that we mentioned before, and it's also lighter. I'm actually shocked by how light it is. It's just 255 grams, and when I say shocked, I mean the fact that this weight is comparable to the one of iPhone 13 Pro Max and the gaming phone, so in some ways it's quite light at 255 grams. The Galaxy Z Fold 3 is 271 grams and the iPhone 13 Pro Max 240 grams. When you open it up, it's shockingly thin at just 5.4 millimeters in thickness. Yes, just 5.4. And at the same time, it has a double rotating falcon wing hinge. And this is here the core area with the core components. This is the area where the folding happens. The backside features a leather imitation. It actually includes fiberglass, and the materials used here include titanium, fiberglass and steel. So I have to say that the build quality has improved, and also the latch here has improved compared to the predecessor. The leather finish definitely helps with the grip. Okay, so there's one thing that Huawei never mentions, which is what protection it's using for the screen. I would say that so far so good. I have yet to scratch it, so there's that, but we don't have a clear name for said protection. Now the screen, when you hold it open like this, you're going to benefit from a 7.8 inch foldable OLED panel, which shows 1 billion colors, has a 120 Hz refresh rate, and the resolution, which is atypical, 2480 over 2200 pixels. When you're using the single screen, as I keep doing right now, well, we have this small panel here, which offers you a 6.5 inch OLED with a resolution of 2480 over 1176 pixels. It's a true chroma screen, by the way. I'm talking about the whole thing, and it's got a special anti-reflective coating, anti-reflective nano optical layer. And the best news I can offer you here is that the crease is mostly invisible. It can only be seen from certain angles and at a certain level of brightness, but only long it's quite invisible. And ever since the Oppo Find N, I haven't seen a crease as well hidden. It may also be the fact that it doesn't fold inwards but rather outwards, which keeps it flatter. Okay, so the actual design has been covered, and so has the display. So we have to talk more about the display by actually viewing a video, which we're doing right now. As you can see, we have some black borders left here. This is one way to view videos. The other one is by holding the device like this. As you can see, the colors are quite vivid and the image is quite immersive. I'm happy with the brightness here, the view angles, which are quite generous, as you can see for yourself. At the same time, the contrast is pretty solid even in the full sunlight. This is a quality screen, however, those black bars may be bothersome for some people. Okay, so the pixels have a pentile matrix arrangement, and we have more measurements related to the screen, which I'm going to cover right now. So if you go here, as I said before, 474 lux units. This is for the open screen. The predecessor, the Mate X, was rather close at 471 lux units. The Galaxy Z Fold 3 is a bit higher at 491 lux, and the Galaxy Z Fold 2 is at 552 lux. Once again, this is the measurement for the inner screen. Now, we also have a bunch of settings for always on display, brightness, dark mode, eye comfort, and so forth. And I think it's time to go inside the phone and discover what else it has to offer. Of course, you can also use it on the small screen, and if you're curious about how YouTube behaves, so let's actually check it out. It looks more like a phone than the other version. That's more like it. The brightness is pretty much the same, but the immersiveness is there on account of lacking black bars. Now, CPU. As I mentioned in the intro, we're treated to a, well, not so fresh processor, I have to admit it. This one here is a processor which was unveiled in December 2020. It's actually the so Snapdragon 888 in a 4G version, because Huawei is not able to purchase 5G components. It was also present on the Huawei P50 Pro and the Huawei P50 Pocket. It's accompanied in this current case by, let's see, 8 gigs of RAM and 512 gigabytes of storage, which is pretty impressive. And I have to admit something. Throughout my usage of the device, I've noticed the temperature growing. Right now it's at 35 degrees Celsius. If you just leave it here and do nothing for 30 minutes, the temperature will jump to 38 or 39 degrees Celsius. Even more so if you're doing something like multitasking, like I'm doing by having a lot of apps open, or even gaming, which definitely grows the temperature way above 40 degrees Celsius. So there's a tendency of heating here. I should also mention that the device doesn't suffer from lag, so day-to-day functioning was never a problem, and if there is, we have this optimization here. So once again, no lag, but some heat may appear during long periods of usage, and I know the exact culprit, the fact that the device is so slim. Okay, so I think it's time to also check out some benchmarks. I'm going to go here and see what we're dealing with. So this is Antutu 9. As you can see, we surpassed the OnePlus Nord 2T and the Huawei P50 Pocket, not bad. While in Antutu 8, let's see the results we got. So we're just above Xiaomi 11T and the OnePlus Nord 2 5G. We're basically also surpassing the Huawei P50 Pro and the Galaxy S20 Ultra, but we're below the Xiaomi 12X and the Poco F3. So then we have the Geekbench 5 multi-core experience. We're just above the Galaxy Z Fold 2, as you can notice here, and also above the Huawei Mate Xs and the Xiaomi 11T. Still below the Galaxy S21 Fan Edition, Poco F4 and Xiaomi 12X. There's a tendency to be below devices which have a Snapdragon 870 processor inside, so that's where we're at. This is the GPU test, and we're just above the Huawei P40 Pro and Huawei Mate Xs. I mean, it's okay, but also just slightly above the predecessor, which is a bit worrying. At least we beat the Huawei P50 Pro. Still, we're below the Galaxy Z Fold 2 and Z Fold 3. It's below Snapdragon 870 phones, and the temperature get a bit high, as I mentioned before. It's also confirmed by our tests. 45.5 degrees Celsius in benchmarks, while in games 40.8 degrees Celsius. It's really easy to go above 40 degrees Celsius with this device. Now, before we go further and talk about the battery, which by the way is a 4600 mAh unit, you should know that in the box we have a 66 watt charger and a USB-C cable, and also this baby, it's a case which is meant to protect the phone in its closed format. It's rather elegant. It feels like a Gucci accessory, and it's quite easy to snap on. Sadly, we do not have a device for the whole thing when open, and there's a bit of adhesive here which makes it a bit harder to pry off, but in the end we can manage. This is the adhesive part I mentioned before. Now, battery time. Okay, so for this demo I'm going to hold the phone like this, 4600 mAh, 66 watt charging, reverse charge. Sadly, no trace of, you've guessed it, wireless charging. So video playback time, we achieved 11 hours and 11 hours and 57 minutes, which would be decent if it were 3 years ago. However, nowadays we've come to expect almost double that amount or even more. Keep in mind, the 11 hours and 57 minutes were achieved with the screen closed. You should probably also mention that. So that's with the screen closed, and with the screen open, we achieved 10 hours and 46 minutes. Now, with these results, I should say that we were able to, we're below the predecessor, as you can see here with the open screen. We're below it by about half an hour, while in the current test, with the standard test with the screen closed, we actually beat the Huawei Mate Xs by 8 minutes. We beat the Xiaomi 12 Pro and the Xiaomi 12 Ultra. We're below the Oppo Find N and the Galaxy Z Fold and the Z Fold 3. This has been the video playback test. Now, when it comes to the PC mark, the continuous usage brought us 9 hours and 37 minutes. In the closed format, we beat the Huawei P50 Pocket, Galaxy Z Fold 3 and Z Fold 2, which is not bad, but worryingly, we're below the Huawei Mate Xs by 2 hours, we're below the Galaxy Fold number 1 and the Oppo Find N. At least the charging checks out 42 minutes only from 0 to 100%, and after 30 minutes you're at 90%, which is actually excellent. Now, on the acoustic side of things, you may have guessed that we don't have an audio jack because it doesn't fit the slim profile, but we do have a speaker here, and we do have the other speaker here. And if you've seen the other Mate devices, you know what to expect, and I'm even including the tablets here. Huawei uses some pretty solid speakers. Okay, so quite a lot of bass, excellent volume, although I feel it can be a bit higher, nice high notes, satisfying voices. I'm all about those speakers, I'm actually appreciating them a lot, and somehow, even though the device is so slim, it doesn't vibrate for some reason. When you listen to rock music, it gets a bit noisier than usual. That's another thing I noticed throughout the usage. And now I think it's time we talked figures, because we have that. So volume power, when using a decibel meter, is a bit underwhelming. 78.7 decibels at the top and 81.5 decibels at the bottom. This one beats the Galaxy S21 Fan Edition and the iPhone 13 Pro, but it stays below the Oppo Find N and a Galaxy Z Fold 3. Gaming is also underwhelming at 94 decibels, we usually expect 100. It seems louder in real life, if I'm being honest. It's above Galaxy Z Flip, Z Fold and also the Z Flip 3, but it's below the Galaxy Z Fold 3 and the Oppo Find N. We're trying to keep it strictly focused on foldables. Now, when it comes to the cameras, I think I'm going to go with lighter colored background so you can properly see the 10.7 megapixel selfie camera here, which shoots 4K video in 60 frames per second, shockingly. Well, if you go to the back side, I think I have to squeeze it like this so you can get a nice view of the triple back camera here. So we have a dual tone flash for sure. We have a 50 megapixel main camera with laser autofocus and f1.8 aperture, an 8 megapixel telephoto camera with 3x optical zoom and optical image stabilization, and a 30 megapixel ultra wide camera with a 120 degrees angle. There's a 4K 60 frames per second capture, and the interface, well, it's basically as we left it for the past years, ever since the Huawei P40 Pro and Huawei Mate 40 Pro. Pretty much the same options are available here and include the more section with quite a few features, including monochrome light painting, time-lapse stickers, super macro. There's the Pro section where you can shoot raw video. There's the video section with your steady shot and the tracking of people, which is actually kind of nice because I saw it on the Mate 40 Pro and loved it, and more. Now let's check out the gallery. So I don't want to make this very long. I find that people won't be using the camera very much with the open format. They may be using it with the closed format. Some conclusions here straight from the get-go. The main camera is most likely taken from the Huawei Mate 40 Pro. That's my idea. And the zoom camera is probably taken from the Huawei P30 Pro. We're dealing very well in close-ups, so close-ups are fine taken with this handset. Check this out. This one out. So they may not be macros, but they're pretty well done. We also have a bunch of selfies, and I'm not very happy with the focus here. Somehow the photos where my eyes were covered by glasses are more satisfying than those where my eyes were, well, available. Not loving the focus here, and the details are quite fine, but somehow they're not exactly what I would expect from a flagship, even though they can compete with the ones of the Galaxy Folds. Here I want to show the texture of the sand, which is pretty well represented. The main camera is pretty solid, and what I collected here is an array of filters used one by one to show you that we have quite a few of them. Another set of fantastic close-ups. I would even go as far as to say that some of them are macros. Very well colored and color calibrated photos of flowers, that's what I can guarantee here, and some nifty macros, even if we don't have, monochromes. We don't have a dedicated monochrome camera, however these are quite artsy and nice looking. Quick comparison between the main camera and the ultra wide camera, provided I can actually find a photo to show you. So let's go. A regular shot and ultra-wide shot with the chromatics being pretty much the same, so I don't see a problem here. And we also get a zoom test on the head of the statue, which is quite satisfying if you ask me, if your expectations revolve around 3x optical zoom. We have here something that's a ball of vegetation. Haven't seen this one before. There was a crow next to it doing a whole dance and being curious, so this is happening at about 5x or even 8x zoom, and I'm happy with the results. Okay, another set of wonderful close-ups. So in the end, I feel that the device is pretty much on par with what the Galaxy Z Fold 3 is offering, although every once in a while there's a bit of a hit and miss from the selfie camera. That's during the day. Let's see the low light. Okay, so as far as the low light pictures are concerned, they're quite detailed and pretty well lit. Actually better lit than expected. I've seen one of the bluest skies ever captured by this camera. You can actually tell the shapes of the clouds and just how blue the sky was instead of the usual black area at the top. Now we also have some reflections here and there, and I have to say that the zoom was performing quite well. This is another one of the good shots because we have a highly lit area here and a dark area here, and the two are pretty well balanced. Plus, notice the details on this building facade. Definitely a camera good for architecture. And this one here, well, it's infused with too much white for a nighttime shot. This phone has a tendency to make shots during the nighttime appear as bright as those during the daytime. So there you have it. Not bad overall, not bad at all. One of the better looking ones, definitely better than the Galaxy Z Fold 2. The 3 was a bit better, but I feel this one may actually be even better. This has been the photo section. Now we're in the video department, and we have 18 videos to play with. So okay, first things first, let's make things simple. Let's start off with the, well, focus test. Alternating on the foreground and the background. Excellently passed. Then we have a selection of stabilization videos. I think I'm going to start with this one because it's, well, it's full HD without any special stabilization option, and it performs quite well. Then we switch it up to 4K without a stabilization option. I know the microphone may appear nice on account that you heard that bird earlier, but actually it's a bit echoey and it cannot handle the wind. So once again, without stabilization, and this is with the special stabilization on. As you can see, the angle is wider. And with or without the modes, I'm happy with what this camera is able to achieve. So stabilization wise, it checks out. Now I know you want some colors, so we have those. Here we are. There's a bit of oversaturation here. The reds are very intense, the greens are very intense, and I feel that we're pretty much on par with what the Galaxy Z Fold 2 and Z Fold 3 are offering. Doesn't go way above them. However, that oversaturation may be bothersome and may even remind some people of the Galaxy S20 Plus, which was a pinnacle of oversaturation when it came to videos. I actually captured the monochrome video because I was curious, and this one is actually a face tracking video. I remember the feature from the Huawei Mate 40 Pro. Wherever you go, the camera follows the face. You don't have to zoom onto it or focus on it. The face is always in focus. It applies to people, in this case to a statue. Okay, this has been the daytime videos, and once again comparable to the Z Folds, and this is a nighttime video. It's a bit flickery, it has some reflections, and particularly if you're panning or moving, you'll notice that the flicker may become annoying. It's between a high mid-range phone and a flagship, that's where it fits. Nothing out of the ordinary except for maybe the brightness of the scenario. Now I think we're about done with the camera. It's time to discuss the connectivity, and we're sadly not talking about 5G. We don't have 5G here, we only have 4G, Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.2, GPS, GLONASS, BDS, Galileo, QZSS, Navic. On the top side here you can find the infrared emitter to control the TV set and set-top box. There's NFC, and we also have the well, USB-C 3.1 connector here. The calls are, I would say, reasonably loud and clear, and we have a bunch of tests here courtesy of Speed Test, with some pretty impressive results when it comes strictly to the Wi-Fi. As you can see, up to 683 megapsec in download, 640 megapsec in upload on Wi-Fi. 4G is more modest, 31.3 over 27.7. When it comes to the software, not much has changed from the predecessor. From the get-go, I want to mention that the device supports a stylus, the M Pencil, second generation if I'm not mistaken. Sadly, we don't have it, but what we do have here is EMUI 12 applied on Android 11. We don't have Google services, but we do have the Huawei app gallery here, providing a lot of special offers and apps. Tens of thousands of apps, and it's expanding constantly. However, there is an extra option, it's called G-Space, and we have it available here in case you want to expand your apps. So we got the YouTube app here. It's available courtesy of G-Space. It basically runs a virtualized environment and lets you access apps like Disney+, Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, Uber, Zoom, Shazam, and more. That's what G-Space does. It pretends it has another Huawei device with Google Play services. Aside from that, we have Petal Maps, which has become a pretty reliable solution for mapping and orientation and navigation, and always gives you a discount on Bolt if you're traveling, which is nice to see these days. It has all sorts of useful layers and traffic information, so that's nice. And aside from that, we have pretty familiar experience. We're using gestures here for the multitasking, for example. And since we have such a large screen, it's only obvious that we're going to rely on split screen. So this is the files. Let's maybe try that again. This is the Files app. I'm in it right now. And if I pull from the side, I have this sidebar here, and I can split the screen and have this gallery on the other side of the screen. Unlike the Galaxy Z Fold, you cannot split the screen in 3, you can split it in 2, but you can add an extra floating window on top of it, like the browser, for example, which I can move around. So I'm actually using 3 windows right now. So there you have it. We can also create pairs of apps which will be kept here handy if you need them. This is the browser from Huawei, and this is the virtual keyboard split in 2. I would say it's reasonably comfy. And aside from that, we have this Today view, which basically is a collection of widgets and useful info and some news. And we have App Gallery, Themes, Game Center, Petal Maps, Health, Books, music, and video also are sources of content from Huawei. There's also a cloud solution. The Mail app actually lets you use even your Gmail, believe it or not. We have an optimizer here to keep things in check. And we also have a Petal Search, which is basically your Google search replacement. It has the regular search, nearby objectives, shopping areas, clothing, and restaurants nearby. This is the Petal section with, well, I would say offers and viral stuff of the day. This is the shopping department, and this is your own profile. So Petal has also evolved quite a bit. It's also a source of apps, by the way. We have a bunch of tools here: contacts, weather, calculator, recorder, find device, mirror, and of course there's the multi-screen collaboration. You can hook this up to a Huawei MateBook laptop and drag and drop files or take calls coming from this device to your laptop and connect to a variety of devices. You can see here FreeBuds 3, FreeBuds 4, FreeBuds 4i, and more devices. You can clear that whole super device thing that's going on. You can see here the quick settings area, or as they call it, the control panel, which is separated from the notification area, as you can see for yourselves. We have digital balance as a rival from the one from Google, and I would say that's about it. I'm not sure if I'm forgetting anything. If you're curious about the settings, here they are. For connectivity, Device Plus, which is that Galaxy I mentioned before, hooking up things from the ecosystem, sound and vibration. Oh, I know I forgot something. Well, the fingerprint scanner is a bit of a bummer, on account of the fact that more often than not, it doesn't recognize my fingerprint, which is happening right now. For some reason, it actually prefers to recognize it when the device is closed. It's a weird bug. It happens quite often. I've come to think of it as a feature. We also have the Huawei Assistant, and I think we've reached pretty much the end of the review. Don't forget once again that it supports a stylus. Okay, so the end of the review brings us to me showing you our website, gsmdome.com, as we draw some conclusions. The fact is that we're dealing here with a device which is limited to 4G connectivity. You know the reasons. It also has a processor which is Snapdragon 888, which was launched in December 2020. Nobody can deny that. But at the same time, it has the same advantages as the predecessor. A large screen which opens like this and can be a solid iPad mini replacement. Now for the pros and cons, something that I have to mention here on the pro side is the fact that we have a very slim device when open. It's also comfy both in close and open mode. It handles multitasking quite well, as I mentioned before, with that whole split screen thingy. Aside from that, the screen is quite bright and satisfying color-wise. And I should also mention that the camera is quite solid if you compare it to other foldables on the market. It's sturdier than the predecessor, it has some pretty good speakers and fast Wi-Fi, it's comfy when closed, and it has fast charging. Those are the pros. On the cons, well, it gets hot even if you don't do anything, and particularly if you're playing games. It doesn't have IP certification. The fingerprint scanner is a bit hit and miss. There is no Google services, no 5G, and the Snapdragon 888 processor feels a bit dated nowadays. At the same time, I should mention that the battery life was a bit underwhelming for me. I expected higher from it. It's expensive, it doesn't have wireless charging, and I'm wondering about the scratches on the exterior since it doesn't have any, well, official protection. Okay, so that's pretty much it. The phone itself is better built, better looking and sturdier than the predecessor for sure, but the components inside may not convince a user waiting for the Galaxy Z Fold 4 in just a few weeks. That's the main problem. It's still an iPad mini rival, and I can see people buying this if they're part of the Huawei ecosystem. If they have the headphones, the tablets, the laptop, a P40 Pro laying around, I feel that they can actually make the swap, particularly if they know how to use the G-Space thing and feel like they're using a regular device. So there's that. At the same time, you know the drawbacks, you know the problems, and you know the things which make it still not exactly like a regular mass product, but more of a one-off, a collectible, something special and rare, and not always in the good sense. That's it from gsno.com. This has been the review of the Huawei Mate Xs 2. Goodbye.